All right, we got Bob Holt with us from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, sports writer extraordinaire, and usually a Thursday star in halftime. We're able to bring him on a Friday instead. Bob, we've got 8 days before you can write about real games involving Arkansas football. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Doing well.
All right, we're all right. So, hey, I got to ask you this, and I'm reading Clay Henry's column from Thursday, and he referenced that the viewing session for the media that day was 5 minutes long, but he still got like a whole column out of 5 minutes. And it's just, your eye has to be trained to be able to, immediately make the most of the time, the little time that you have, whether that window of viewing is 20 minutes or 15 minutes or 5 minutes, as it would have been yesterday. So, I mean, when you walk into these practices, you've got to be laser focused on immediately what you want to write on before you're going to get shuffled out of the building.
Well, yeah, yesterday I think what happened was they started earlier than they originally had planned. And, the coaches obviously run the show. And so the time we showed up, they'd already, there are obviously certain things they want us to see, certain things they don't want anybody to see. And so it was kind of just I wouldn't call it a miscalculation. It was just they changed the schedule around on short notice, but it wasn't. I don't think they were purposely trying to just limit us to 5 minutes. Just kind of worked out that way. But yeah, when you go in there, you don't need to be wasting time. Even if it's 20 minutes, you need to kind of have a game plan going in. I want to see maybe some of these guys have been in green jerseys. I want to see if they're out, or maybe so and so hadn't been in practice. I want to see if he's back, or so-and-so's moved to this position. I want to see how he looks. I want to sort of hone in on a position like that. So it definitely helps to have a game plan going in, not to just wander in and say, oh, what's going on over here,
So I look at your list and your more recent practice notebook that you put together with Tom Murphy at Whole Hog Sports, and there are a lot of players wearing green jerseys, which means that they're not to be hit. It's a no-contact jersey. I mean, we feel like throughout this fall camp that Arkansas has dodged what you might say would be like a rash of injuries where in other schools have not. Nobody's out for the season necessarily. There's a couple of guys I know. Coylan Jackson retire. Levi Draper did the same. So it's not to, say that those two retirements don't matter, but it does feel like Arkansas has dodged an injury bug throughout the fall camp. But then you see a lot of these green jerseys, and you're hoping that they're all ready for the first game of the season next week.
Yeah, let me start off by saying Tom does a lot better job of figuring all that out than I do. He's much more observant, so he does most of the nuts and bolts on those things that we combine for notes. But yeah, I mean, I think coaches these days, obviously, back when I started doing this and way before then, teams did 2 a day, sometimes 3 a day. It was really about getting guys in shape. Now, of course, guys work out over the summer, and when the school starts, they're already in great shape for the most part. And so they're not having to, practice as much, and they don't do as much hitting. I think that's just a precaution. Also, back in the 60s and 70s, you had like 120, 150 guys on a team. Now you have 85 scholarship players, and sometimes teams are a little under that, depending on what's transfer portal. So I think coaches try to be careful. They obviously don't want to get anybody hurt for the season. And so there have been some Razorbacks who have been, I guess, dinged up is the term, or banged up here and there. And I think the coaching and the training staff are trying to be smart. And if somebody's got something they're dealing with, they want to say, well, hey, let's take it off this guy. Let's not have contact because we want to be ready for the game, not necessarily for the scrimmage. I mean, obviously they'd like him to never have to miss practice or to be able to do everything, not be limited, but that's just not the way things are in the real world. And so, I think it's a combination of, teams are a lot more careful. People probably notice on videos and pictures, they're wearing those sort of foam things on their helmets, sort of a protective thing on top of the helmet. I think a lot of teams are doing that. So they're trying to be careful with guys, obviously, and get everybody in the opener.
Bob, next week, obviously, be game week, and we'll have some depth chart. We'll actually have depth charts in front of us. Do you think that there will be any surprises on it, or do we pretty much know where everybody's going to fall and rank on them?
I think we'll probably know. I think it's sound like Deputy Dog there, so remembers who that was. I think things are be pretty clear. But Sam Pittman indicated yesterday, they'll probably have a depth chart of some kind, maybe in a release on Monday, maybe not. But he indicated maybe they finalize the depth chart Wednesday, that he wanted to keep having some competition in some of these spots on the O-line, the D-line. But certainly most of the spots, we know what the pecking order is, even who the next guy up is, like Rocket Sanders is the number 2 back behind Traylon Smith, and Malik Hornsby is the number 2 quarterback behind K.J. Jefferson. But those defensive linemen are going to be rotating a lot. They're going to probably rotate. I think Sam said on his radio show they're going to rotate 8 guys in and out, maybe have other guys ready for a third down, third and long package to rush the passer. So they're probably going to be playing 10 defensive linemen a game, something like that. And then the guard spot, especially left guard, is still kind of up in the air. Or there's still competition there on the O line, but most of the spots, you feel pretty good, but you know who they're probably going to start. Or certainly guys are going to play a lot.
So all the guys that have been injured recently, and I know Traylon Burks, still just gotten back to practice in the green jersey. Having Ricky Stromberg back healthy after the knee injury and no longer wearing the green jersey has got to be a big thing, because it kind of starts with him, and I know that big things are expected of Ricky Stromberg this year, and I think he's got the opportunity to take a huge step forward this season.
Yeah, he's a guy that came in. It's very difficult to put on the offensive line, effectively as a true freshman. Sometimes guys get thrown in there out of necessity, but Ricky showed as a true freshman he was a very good player, and now he's going to be a third-year junior. And he's at that all-important center spot. Yeah, they missed him for a couple of weeks. And then he was out there in a green jersey. Obviously these guys always say about taking mental reps, since they're out there with their teammates. And, that's big to get him back. He's got a lot of preseason all-conference recognition, I think deservedly so. And he's kind of the main guy in there that holds it all together in that center spot for him.
When I read these names on the green jersey that are wearing the green jerseys and the reasons that they are, one does stand out to me, and it worries me anytime anybody has turf toe. That's an injury that can really linger, can come back on you. Like I remember, I was at Jack Lambert's last game with the Pittsburgh Steelers. His career ended because of turf toe. Now, that was AstroTurf, different situation, but one of the toughest guys in the history of the NFL, turf toe, ended his career. Traylon Smith has been out of practice for a couple of weeks with turf toe, so I'm sure he hasn't been putting too much weight on it. But, that's one that does worry me, especially from a position where you're just not blessed with a ton of experience.
Yeah, he's been back at practice, but we were talking about, some of the media guys were talking about turf toe. I never played football. I'm pretty much of a wimp, so I'm sure if I had turf toe, I would retire very quickly. But one of the other guys talked about having it, just saying how tough it was, just really couldn't push off. Think about a toe, you think, well, gee, that's a pretty small part of your body, but it's a big part of your foot, the big toe. And, so I'm sure it's painful, and it can affect probably your sudden burst, and a lot of it might be degrees of pain guys can play with, or I don't know how much they can bend something like that. You certainly want to have some feeling in your foot, And so, that's something to watch and be aware of. But Smith has been back practicing.
Bob, we heard Coach Pittman talk about it yesterday, brought up, Malik Hornsby and how he's going to be the number 2 guy, and that they're going to have packages there for him. How confident, though, are they in continuing, if he's got to continue where KJ left off if something happens to KJ?
Well, yeah, I don't know. He played a little bit last season. Basically, he hadn't really played at all. KJ hadn't played a lot, but he's played some, at least starting against Missouri last year. Started against LSU the year before, had some more snaps. But I'm sure ideally they'd ease Malik Hornsby into some situations and kind of use him in some low leverage type things. Like maybe you talk about a pitcher in a low leverage game, either somebody's ahead. For Arkansas, ideally they're ahead and not way behind. But, I think, he's showing them some stuff in practice, but it's like anything else until you go out there and do it in a game. It's just hard to know. Sam indicated that maybe when they put him in last year, maybe he wasn't ready. And this year they feel like he would be ready if they put him in a situation like that again.
Bob, we'll leave it there, man. It's good talking with you, and can't wait to when we talk with you next week. We'll have a depth chart, a real one, I guess, to go off of. If you trust what you see, we'll talk about the Rice Owls, other SEC games, and get the football season going. Have a great weekend.
Okay, you guys take care.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bob.
Bob Holt, Democrat Gazette. Be with us next Friday here on Halftime. All right, we got one more segment to wrap things up, a Duma of the Week in just a moment. I want to remind everybody that the final episode of Growing Up Grovey is tonight on Cox or on yourview.com, the third and final episode that Quinn Grovey and those people put together. Really a great, I've seen the first two episodes. Second episode, it's just a ton of highlights. Great stories, and looking forward to watching the third episode this weekend, Growing Up Grovey. And Halftime wraps up next.